The gold digger thought she was in control until he shaved her bald on camera. She looked like someone who belonged to the world she had carefully stepped into. But nothing about Eliza was truly hers. Not the dress, silk, champagne-toned, clinging like desire. Not the heels, black, red-soled, echoing across imported marble. Not even the apartment, glass-walled, high above a city that didn't know her name. Everything had a price tag. Everything had already been paid for. By him, Leon. He wasn't the kind of man who asked for attention. He was the kind of man who received it, wordlessly, effortlessly. Tall, broad-shouldered, salt and pepper hair, always combed back like time had no power over him. He wore tailored charcoal suits that looked more like armor than fabric. His voice rarely rose above a whisper, but when it did, deals closed, people obeyed. Leon lived in a different orbit, one where money wasn't wealth, it was leverage. He didn't date, he was selected, curated, possessed. And when he saw Eliza at that gallery downtown, under soft amber lights and jazz humming through the speakers, he didn't smile, he didn't flirt. He only looked at her like she was already his. And maybe she was. Because Eliza had spent most of her life learning how to be what men like Leon wanted. Beautiful, composed, silent. Her features were symmetrical, with a cold kind of allure, high cheekbones, dusky skin, dark almond eyes that lingered just long enough. But her power didn't lie in her face. It was in the way she moved, like she already belonged, like nothing could touch her, like the world couldn't afford to. But the thing about borrowed power is it expires. And when it does, there's always a debt to be paid. At first, it felt like freedom. The penthouse sat on the 43rd floor, glass, steel, silence, the kind of silence that made your own breathing feel too loud. Leon's world was curated, temperature controlled, light dimmed. Every surface gleamed like it had never been touched. Eliza moved through it like a dream version of herself. No more roommates, no more overdue bills, no more chasing rent in exchange for fake smiles. Here, the wine was aged, the bed sheets were imported, the mirrors were too clean to lie. Leon didn't make promises, he made arrangements. 3 weeks in, he handed her a card, not a key, and on the back, in his precise handwriting, 3 rules. No male visitors, no unscheduled disappearances, and no secrets. She laughed at the time, softly, like it was a joke. But it wasn't. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. Leon's power was in the way silence stretched between sentences, in the way he paused, then stared, as if the air itself waited for his approval. Eliza obeyed, because why wouldn't she? He gave her everything she thought she wanted. Dinners at restaurants with no menus, just chefs who knew her palate. Jewelry boxes that arrived without a sender. Trips that began with,
"You don't need to pack. I already packed for you."
He knew her sizes. He knew her fragrance. He knew how to wrap control in velvet and call it affection. And she told herself this was love, or at least a version of it. But late at night, when the lights dimmed and the world outside softened into sky and shadow, Eliza sometimes wondered, if someone else is writing the script of your life, even if it's a beautiful one, is it still yours? The first time she met Julian, it was harmless. A rooftop event in Midtown. Startup people, crypto hype, too many white shirts, and not enough sincerity. He wasn't like Leon. Julian was younger, reckless, tan from weekend sailing, smiling like he still believed life was a game he could win. He called her electric, said she had the kind of face people remembered in airports. She smiled, just enough. It was supposed to end there, but it didn't, because control, no matter how expensive, always leaves a bruise. And in the soft spaces of her life, Leon's penthouse, Leon's rules, Julian was an escape hatch, a breath she hadn't realized she'd been holding. It started with lunch, then a phone number, then a burner phone. She was careful. Meetings in hotels under false names, screenshots deleted, voices lowered to a whisper even when no one else was near. She told herself it wasn't betrayal, it was strategy, a soft exit, a parachute. Julian knew of Leon, of course. Everyone did, but he didn't flinch. He only asked one question.
If I can offer you a real life, why stay trapped in his?
She didn't answer, because even then, she wasn't sure. She began moving money slowly, wiring small transfers from Leon's business accounts he let her access for emergencies. She saved passwords to an encrypted folder. She made a plan. 6 weeks, then she'd vanish. She'd leave behind the penthouse, the pearls, the cameras. She didn't know the cameras had never stopped recording. Leon didn't watch her like a jealous man. He watched her like a CEO watching his investment. And when the file appeared on his private server, titled Eliza 0417CONF, he didn't yell. He simply nodded once. Then, I picked a date.
The message was short.
Dinner this weekend. Just us. Come early. Wear white.
Leon. No emojis, no pleasantries. Just coordinates. Just control. Eliza felt a flicker of hesitation, but she smiled through it. She thought, he's letting me go with grace. One last meal, one last glass of red, then freedom. She didn't know it was already too late. The villa sat on a private cliff 2 hours out of the city, designed like a Mediterranean postcard, terracotta roof, olive trees dancing in the coastal wind, and quiet, always that quiet. There were no staff, no security guards, only him. Leon greeted her like nothing had changed, kissed her cheek, complimented her perfume, poured the wine himself.
You still like Margot?
He asked, swirling the bottle gently.
You remembered.
She smiled. They sat across from each other at a stone table, shaded by ivy and moonlight. The meal was already plated. He never asked what she wanted. For a while, everything was perfect. Old jazz hummed from hidden speakers. The sea wind softened the air. She felt safe, too safe. Then came the pause. He stood, walked toward the glass wall at the far end of the patio, pressed a small black remote, and the monitor lit up. At first, it just flickered, then image, then sound. Her, Julian, the hotel room, her laughter, her hand on his chest. Her voice said,
Just a few more weeks.
Her breath caught in her throat like broken glass. Leon didn't speak. He just turned back slowly. His voice was calm, too calm.
You thought I didn't know. You thought you were the one running this.
Eliza tried to stand, but her legs were no longer her own. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't accuse. He simply gestured, and out came a silver case. Inside, a clipper. Silent, cold, waiting. You said I bought your time, but somehow you forgot that includes everything. The glass wine trembled in her hand. The air around them held its breath. The night had changed, and Eliza's story was no longer hers. She couldn't hold it in anymore. Somewhere between the third and fourth pass of the clipper, her voice broke. It wasn't loud, it wasn't dignified. It was raw, hoarse, almost childlike.
Please, Leon, don't do this.
But the buzzing didn't stop. He stood behind her, steady, precise, like an artist focused only on completion. She tried to lift her hands. He gently pushed them back down.
I'll leave. I won't take anything. Just let me keep this. Please, I'll disappear. You'll never see me again.
Her words dissolved into trembling breath. She wasn't crying. Not exactly. She was unraveling. And still he kept shaving. Her legs were shaking, fingers gripping the chair so hard her knuckles turned white. Hair fell around her like dying petals, slipping off her lap, sticking to her bare shoulders, coating the floor in a growing, silent carpet of shame. And above it all, in the far corner of the room, a red light blinked, recording. She saw it too late. A small black camera, the kind she'd seen in his office, pointed straight at her reflection, streaming, blinking, watching.
Oh God, are you filming this?
She tried to stand, but her knees buckled. Leon placed one hand gently on her shoulder. It didn't feel cruel. It felt inevitable. He leaned in, whispered low enough that only she could hear.
You filmed your lies. I'm filming the truth.
Then he stepped back and made the final pass over the crown of her head, exposing pale scalp, uneven stubble, and everything she had once used to shield herself. It was gone, and she was still. No more begging, only breathing. Shallow, uncertain. The red light blinked again, then faded to black. She stayed in the chair long after he left. The clippers sat still beside her, silent now, just a cold object. But they still hummed inside her skull, a phantom vibration, a sound she would never unhear. She didn't look at the mirror, not yet. Her lap was covered in what remained, thick black strands clinging to her dress, her arms, her thighs. Some had already begun to stick to her skin with sweat. She touched her scalp, tentative. Her fingertips slid over stubble, rough, uneven, exposed. That simple gesture, it broke something in her. She stood, and that's when she saw it. The camera, still there, still pointed at the chair, still blinking once every 5 seconds, recording. Maybe it was streamed live. Maybe it was saved. Maybe it didn't matter, because someone would see it. Her, naked in a way nobody ever could be. She didn't scream. She didn't smash the camera. She didn't even cry. Instead, she walked to the corner of the room, collapsed to her knees, and just sat, arms around her legs, forehead against the wall. Small, shaved, silenced. The drive back was in silence. Leon didn't speak. He drove with one hand on the wheel, the other resting on his lap, casual, as if nothing had changed. She wore a hoodie, his. The hood pulled tight, Strings knotted, head turned to the window. That night, Eliza locked herself in the guest room. She didn't sleep, she didn't eat. She sat on the floor in the corner until morning, arms wrapped around her knees like armor that no longer fit. She didn't know who had seen the footage. She didn't ask, but she felt it. On the way the housekeeper glanced away, in the silence of her phone, in the weight of every second that followed. She left 3 days later. No suitcase, no goodbye, only the clothes on her back, and the sound of clippers forever carved into her memory. People expect redemption to look loud. A viral post, a confrontation, a woman screaming in a courtroom or slamming the door. But Eliza's rebellion was quiet, private, almost invisible, unless you knew where to look. She rented a one-bedroom apartment under a different name. No doorman, no cameras, just a mailbox with peeling numbers and a view of nothing. She shaved the rest of her head herself, not for vanity, not to fix it, but to take back the part he didn't finish. There in the bathroom mirror under fluorescent light, she took the buzzing clippers in trembling hands and finished the job. No tears, no shaking, just steel on the scalp. The sound was still there, but this time it wasn't his hand holding the power. The footage never surfaced publicly, not in the way she'd feared, but someone had seen it. A few anonymous accounts sent her messages.
You deserved it. Gold digger tax. That video, brutal, but satisfying.
She didn't respond. She didn't post. She simply deleted every trace of her old life. Every filtered selfie, every gift she once posed with, every photo where her smile had been a transaction. The world didn't notice her disappearance, but she noticed her return. On the way she walked differently down the street, not like someone being admired, but like someone no longer afraid to be ignored. She applied for a job at a second-hand bookstore. The woman behind the counter asked about the hoodie pulled tight over her head. Eliza just smiled. "It's temporary," she said. She didn't need to reclaim the past. She only needed to stop carrying it. And day by day, strand by strand, something new began to grow. Not her hair, something deeper, something unshakable.